Well, it was very difficult for a girl to become a truck driver and even harder to get the first job with no experience. It was 2011 when I got my driving license.
What happens when your body starts failing you in the middle of your dream? Iwona Blecharczyk became famous as the trucking girl, documenting her life behind the wheel of massive trucks across 3 continents. Over 1 million people follow her adventures on YouTube. She drives on Canada's deadly ice roads, hauls 63-ton loads through oil fields, and represents Volvo Trucks as their ambassador. But behind the fearless exterior and inspiring social media posts, there's a story most people don't know. A story about deteriorating health that almost ended everything. About the discrimination that made her question her worth. About working conditions so brutal that she had to fight governments to change them. This is what the cameras don't show. The moment everything started falling apart. In 2021, after 10 years of driving professionally, Iwona Blecharczyk faced a decision that terrified her.
But for Iwona Blecharczyk, freedom was always waiting on the road.
Her health was deteriorating. The long hours, the physical demands of the job, the lack of proper rest facilities, the stress of managing social media while working full-time as a driver. It was all catching up with her body in ways she couldn't ignore anymore. She mentioned it briefly in an interview with Eurowag, almost casually, like it wasn't a big deal. But buried in that conversation was a devastating admission. The lack of flexibility in her work and her deteriorating health pushed her to start her own business to gain more control over her time. Despite many fears, in her 10th year as a driver, she picked up her first truck and started her own company. Think about what that means. After spending a decade building expertise, working for established companies, and earning respect in an industry that barely has 3% female drivers in Europe, her body was breaking down. She couldn't keep up the pace anymore. And instead of quitting, instead of walking away from the career she'd sacrificed everything to build, she had to take on even more risk by starting her own transport business. The decision came with crushing self-doubt. She admitted that almost the entire time, she felt like she couldn't handle it. That's not the confident ambassador you see in Volvo promotional materials. That's a woman pushed to her physical limits, gambling her savings and her future on a business she wasn't sure she could manage, all because her health wouldn't allow her to continue working for someone else. Nobody talks about this part. When her over 1 million YouTube subscribers watch her videos, they see adventure. They see freedom. They see a woman living her dream. They don't see the deteriorating health that forced her hand. They don't see the fear of starting a business while her body was already telling her to stop. They don't see the nights wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake. Where it all began. To understand how Iwona ended up in that position, you have to go back to the beginning. She was born on September 24, 1987, in Kostowa, a small village in southeastern Poland near the Ukrainian border. This wasn't Warsaw or Krakow. This was rural Poland, where opportunities were limited and dreams of adventure seemed impossible. In 2007, at 20 years old, Iwona entered the Miss Polonia beauty pageant. She reached the finals of Miss Polonia of Podkarpacie in Mielec. Picture that for a second. A young woman from a tiny village standing on stage in evening gowns and heels, competing in a beauty contest. That was supposed to be her path. That's what society expected from a beautiful young woman in Poland. But Iwona had different plans. In 2010, she graduated from university with a degree that qualified her to teach English as a foreign language. She became a certified teacher. She had a respectable career path laid out, safe, predictable, socially acceptable. And she rejected it completely. Instead, she started driving a minibus on routes between Poland and England. Then, she worked in the clothing industry. Neither job satisfied her. In 2011, at 23 years old, Iwona made a decision that would change everything. She started working as a professional lorry driver, In a continent where only 3% of long-haul truck drivers are women, where the industry is dominated by men who often don't believe women belong behind the wheel of an 18-wheeler, Iwona walked into one of the most male-dominated professions that exists. She wasn't just challenging gender norms, she was demolishing them. By 2013, she'd founded her YouTube channel, Trucking Girl. She started documenting her life from the cabin of her truck, sharing the reality of what it's like to be a professional driver. The beautiful sunrises, the treacherous roads, the loneliness, the freedom, all of it, unfiltered. The discrimination nobody wants to acknowledge. Here's something Iwona discovered quickly. Being a woman in trucking means constantly proving yourself in ways men never have to. It means dealing with people who assume you're incompetent before you even speak. It means getting charged higher prices because someone thinks they can take advantage of you. She shared a story from Sicily that perfectly captures what she deals with regularly. She was transporting hazardous materials and needed to take a ferry. She went to buy a ticket. A man inspected her truck and told her they wouldn't take her because the truck allegedly didn't have the necessary hooks to secure the rig to the ferry floor in case of a storm. A male friend of hers who regularly travels with the same type of loads had never encountered this issue. He'd never had to pay anything extra. But Iwona couldn't convince the guy. She drove to another ferry company. They told her the ticket would cost 750 euros, a significantly higher price than normal. She contacted the forwarding company for help and eventually found a broker who sold her a ticket for 400 euros. But then that broker backed out once they found out it was her, a woman, driving a truck with hazardous materials. She ended that story with a chilling observation. You have to be 5 times more alert than men in this business. 5 times, not a little more careful. 5 times more vigilant, because people are constantly trying to cheat you, dismiss you, or block you from doing your job. In southern Italy, she noticed prices often depended on how someone judged you. Once at a petrol station, she paid 20 euros for a coffee, a sandwich, and water. Then the clerk realized she was a truck driver and apologized, giving her a case of water for free because she'd been massively overcharged. Another time, she was charged 30 euros for some allegedly special edition cookies. She declined that exclusive experience. But it's not just about money. When Iwona decided to start her own transport business in 2021, she encountered a forwarding company owner who bluntly told her that preparing her contract was taking time because he was writing it so that a blonde could understand it. Let that sink in. A professional woman with 10 years of driving experience, about to start her own company, and a man in the industry felt comfortable openly insulting her intelligence to her face. This is what Iwona deals with constantly. Not occasionally, constantly. The assumption that because she's a woman, she must be stupid. The assumption that she doesn't know what she's doing. The assumption that she doesn't belong. The brutal reality of life on the road. Beyond the discrimination, there's the job itself. And this is where Iwona's story gets even more heartbreaking, because she's spent years fighting to expose conditions that most people never think about. In 2023, Iwona founded a Facebook group called Kiroka Ni Pies, which translates to "A trucker is not a dog." The group became a platform where drivers from all over the world shared their experiences. The majority of posts and photos focused on the abysmal condition of toilets and the complete lack of proper resting places for drivers. Think about what that means. Iwona is driving across Europe, across Canada, across the United States. She's transporting essential goods that keep society functioning, and she doesn't have access to clean bathrooms. She doesn't have safe places to sleep. She's expected to deliver cargo worth millions of dollars while being treated with less dignity than most people give their pets. She took this fight to Brussels. In February of 2023, she spoke at a meeting of CSR Europe, a network of organizations focused on corporate social responsibility. She presented the terrible conditions drivers face, particularly around loading and unloading. Before the presentation, she appealed to her fellow drivers for support. asking them to send stories and photos documenting the brutal reality.
Are fed up. They say, I don't nag that much. That's the reality, and so on and so forth. So I need to mix.
She knew people would accuse her of exaggerating and making things up. That's the position Iwona found herself in. She had to gather evidence to prove that, yes, actually, truck drivers are being treated inhumanely. Yes, actually, the working conditions are that bad. She had to fight governments and corporations just to be treated with basic human dignity. And here's the part that breaks your heart. While she was doing all of this advocacy work, while she was trying to improve conditions for all drivers, her own health was falling apart. The long distances, the irregular sleep, the stress, the physical demands of the job. It was destroying her body. The ice roads and oil fields. But before her health forced her to start her own company, Iwona pushed herself further than almost any driver goes. In 2017, she moved to Canada. She wasn't content with just driving in Europe anymore. She wanted new challenges. She became the first Polish woman to drive Canada's ice roads. These aren't regular highways. These are temporary roads built on frozen lakes and rivers in the far north, used to transport supplies to diamond mines and remote communities. The ice is thick enough to support massive trucks, but the margin for error is razor thin. If you drive too fast, if you hit a weak spot, if the temperature fluctuates unexpectedly, you can go through the ice. And if that happens in the remote Canadian wilderness, help might not arrive in time. Iwona drove these routes. She transported loads to diamond mines in conditions that would terrify most experienced drivers. Then, she moved into even more specialized work. She drove off-road B-train rigs in oil fields, hauling permissible gross vehicle weights of up to 63 tons. As one of the very few drivers trusted with these massive, specialized loads, she proved herself in one of the most demanding segments of the trucking industry. She worked in the harsh winter climate of North America.
This temperature especially, you should be putting it in anywhere below freezing temperatures just to keep your engine.
She navigated the long, winding roads throughout Europe. She transported oversized cargo, including wind turbine blades that required specialized equipment and permits. For 6 years, she worked specifically in oversized transport, which demands a level of skill and precision that most drivers never develop. All of this while documenting her life on social media. All of this while dealing with constant discrimination. All of this while fighting for better working conditions. All of this while her body was slowly breaking down. The dream that came with a price. By the time Iwona started Imagination Transport in 2021, she'd achieved things most people would consider impossible. She was a Volvo Trucks ambassador. Mattel had awarded her the prestigious Barbie Shiro title in 2019, recognizing her as a role model for girls. She'd been featured in major international publications, including Die Zeit, Der Spiegel, La Presse, and others. Discovery Channel chose her to present a TV series called Przygody Truckerki, which translates to Trucker Woman's Adventures. She'd spoken at TEDx conferences. She'd won the Volvo Trucking Adventure competition, beating out over 2,000 drivers from around the world for the chance to make an epic road trip from Gothenburg to the North Cape, the most northern point of Europe. She'd published a 320-page book about her experiences. She'd built a social media following of over 1 million people on YouTube alone, with an additional 1.7 million on TikTok. From the outside, it looked like she had it all. The dream career, the recognition, the opportunities. But the reality was far more complicated. Starting her own transport business was supposed to give her more control over her time and reduce the health problems that had been plaguing her.
It supports me every day, and I feel safe in. And this is like...
But it came with massive challenges she wasn't prepared for. Significant costs like road tolls, financial management difficulties caused by payment delays, the constant pressure of proper documentation, where missing a single inspection or piece of paperwork could cost her the business license she'd worked so hard to obtain. Unexpected expenses, like breakdowns or tire replacements, could seriously strain her company's budget. At one point, she considered getting a transport manager's professional competence certificate to avoid the costs of hiring someone with those qualifications. But the exam for that certificate is notoriously difficult. Everything about running the business was harder than she expected. And she admitted something heartbreaking in that Eurowag interview. Almost the entire time, she felt like she couldn't handle it. The woman who'd driven ice roads in Canada, who'd hauled 63-ton loads in oil fields, who'd become an international ambassador for one of the biggest truck manufacturers in the world. She felt like she was failing. The loneliness nobody talks about. There's another aspect of Iwona's story that doesn't make it into the glamorous social media posts. The isolation, the loneliness of spending weeks or months away from family and friends, sleeping in your truck, eating meals alone in rest stops, watching life pass by through a windshield. When asked about being a female truck driver, Iwona admitted it can feel a little isolated, being far away from family and friends. She said it would be nice to have some more female colleagues. With only 3% of European truck drivers being women, the isolation isn't just physical. It's also professional and social. She takes precautions for her safety, parking in safe places, trying not to draw too much attention to herself. But she insists she's never afraid. That's the brave face she shows the world. But what does it really mean to say you're trying not to draw attention to yourself as a woman driver? It means constantly being aware that you're vulnerable. It means making yourself small. It means the opposite of the bold, adventurous image her social media projects. The reality is that Iwona spends most of her life alone.
That channel boasts 1.16 million subscribers and over 527 million views and counting.
Yes, she has over 1 million YouTube subscribers. Yes, brands like Volvo, TomTom, Eurowag, and Goldhofer want to partner with her. But at the end of the day, she's still in that truck cabin by herself, dealing with deteriorating health, facing discrimination, fighting battles that never seem to end. Recently, she's had to deal with another problem. Fake accounts impersonating her have appeared on social media. People are using her image to fraudulently obtain money from her followers. She's had to post warnings, making it clear she's not running any fundraisers or asking anyone for financial contributions in private messages. Even her success has been weaponized against her and the people who support her. What keeps her going? So why does she continue? After everything she's been through, after the health problems, the discrimination, the loneliness, the financial stress, why hasn't she quit? In her own words, she loves freedom. She loves the beautiful sound of the engine, the smell of the South, shooting stars and sunrises. She loves traveling the world in trucks, delivering cargo, and discovering beautiful corners of the planet. She's built her entire identity around being trucking girl. Her slogan is "Born to be myself." But there's something deeper driving her. She's become an advocate. She's not just trying to succeed for herself anymore. She's fighting to make the industry better for everyone. Through her, A Trucker is Not a Dog campaign. Through speaking at conferences in Brussels, through using her massive social media platform to expose poor working conditions, she's become a voice for drivers who don't have the visibility she does. She organizes charity initiatives. She's created a charity calendar in cooperation with major Polish transport companies to support drivers facing medical crises. She's an active ambassador for the Truckers' Life Foundation.
So 15 years behind the steering wheel of a big truck.
She gladly participates in actions supporting various initiatives because she keeps in mind the well-being of people and nature. In interviews, she talks about how tech innovation is making trucking more accessible to women. Modern trucks have increased ranges of seat and wheel positions to provide better ergonomics for every body type. Power-assisted steering systems lessen steering force by up to 85%. These improvements matter enormously, especially for women who might not have the same upper body strength as male drivers. She's also helping to change perceptions. When she won the Barbie Shero Award in 2019, it sent a message to young girls that they don't have to conform to traditional expectations. A former Miss Polonia contestant who became a truck driver shows that women can choose any path they want, regardless of what society expects. The heartbreak beneath the success. But here's the heartbreaking truth that ties everything together. Iwona Blecharczyk shouldn't have had to sacrifice her health to pursue her dream. She shouldn't have had to face constant discrimination and prove herself 5 times more than male drivers. She shouldn't have had to fight governments just to get access to clean toilets and safe resting places. She shouldn't have had to start her own business because her deteriorating health made it impossible to work for someone else with the flexibility she needed. The fact that she succeeded despite all of this doesn't make it inspiring. It makes it tragic, because for every Iwona Blecharczyk who manages to overcome these obstacles, how many other women never get the chance? How many gave up after facing their first incident of discrimination? How many walked away when their health started failing because they didn't have the resources to start their own company? How many never even tried because they looked at the industry and realized the barriers were too high? Iwona once said she'd love to see more women driving trucks, but the industry hasn't made that easy.
Hi guys, I'm Iwona. I've been trucking for 15 years already.
Europe's 3% female driver statistic hasn't budged much. The working conditions haven't improved dramatically. The discrimination hasn't disappeared. The physical toll of the job remains brutal. When she started her company, Imagination Transport, she chose the name deliberately. Imagination, the ability to envision something different. The refusal to accept that things have to stay the way they've always been. But imagination shouldn't be required just to be treated with basic dignity in your profession. The saddest part of Iwona's story is that she's simultaneously a massive success and a victim of systemic failure. She's built a brand, created a business, inspired millions of people, and changed the conversation around women in trucking. But she's also dealt with deteriorating health, relentless discrimination, dangerous working conditions, and a constant battle to prove she deserves to exist in a space that was never designed for people like her.